In a world where movie studios and television studios are constantly looking for new things to adapt to get their movies and TV shows out, and they seem to constantly be taking our books, and more often than not, they run them right into the ground. I'm looking at you, Dark Tower. So it's easy to cringe when we hear the name of our favorite book that is being adapted. But you know what? Sometimes they do it right. They do a good job. And that's what we're here to talk about today. The 10 best adaptations of books that I've seen. I recently did a video, the movie was better than the book. That's not this list, because even on that list, sometimes it was like a crappy book that actually made a really good movie. In this one, it's the book was genuinely really good or great, and it made a genuinely really good movie or great, and that movie then was actually a good adaptation of the source material, being extremely faithful and sticking to the plot, or at the very least, capturing the mood, the tone, the atmosphere, and the general message that the book originally conveyed, making it a good adaptation. In other words, the book is great, the movie is also great, and that movie can stand shoulder to shoulder with the book and hold its head high. Now, I do want to start this out with an honorable mention, and that is The Lord of the Rings. And I want to say, I feel like that should probably be pretty high on this list, because I feel like that genuinely is one of the best adaptations just ever, flat out. But I don't feel comfortable putting it on this list proper, because I have not read all of those books. I've read the first one and half of the second one, and then I kind of fell off with the intention of coming back and finishing it. This was when I was much younger, and I never came back and finished it. So the fact that I haven't actually read all of the Lord of the Rings books, I just don't feel I have the authority to say, yes, it deserves to be on this list. Although if I was a betting man, I'd say, yes, it deserves to be on this list, if that makes any sense. Also, I want to say extreme honorable mention to every anime ever made. Manga readers are so extremely and profoundly spoiled when it comes to adaptations, because you'll have a manga and it almost, if it's successful, it almost automatically gets an anime, and that anime is almost always like shot for shot, line for line remake of the manga. It's disgusting how good of like adaptations anime and manga readers get. Not fair to the rest of the world. And then you have your favorite book and it gets made into a movie and it's like a dumpster fire. I don't understand why Hollywood can't take like a clue and just, get it right. Anyway, now the actual list. And coming in at number 10, I'm going to say The Expanse. This doesn't come higher on the list because actually I think The Expanse, the series, was pretty darn good adaptation of this. The only reason this doesn't come much higher on the list is because I didn't think this was actually that great of a book series. I actually reviewed all of these on the series, and they all got between like 6s and 7s. One of them came all the way in at a 5 because I just thought it was a super average book. But for the most part, it's just a little bit above average. Good story, good space opera. And then the adaptation just really nailed it. Came in and just knocked it out of the park as far as getting it right. The only reason it doesn't, like I said, the only reason it doesn't come higher on the list is because some of these books are so much better, which kind of in turns makes the movies or the adaptations better. And yeah, but I really, really, really have to give credit where credit is due, because the adaptation of this really did a good job. And if you really liked the books, you will really like the series, or vice versa. If you watched the series and you thought, man, that was a really good show, and you haven't read the books, go check them out, because they were really good. They were quite impressively written. I think I always said that they were just so consistent in their quality. There wasn't really many dips. I don't know, whatever. Go watch those videos. They're probably not that good. I can't watch anything that I recorded like a year ago or more. It's so hard. I cringe the whole time. I leave them up for posterity at this point because I can't watch them. Anyway, moving on to number 9, and that would be Annihilation. I really liked that movie. As a matter of fact, I saw the movie before I read the book, and I thought it was a good movie when I just saw it in and of itself. And then I read the book, and the book is just phenomenal. They're really close to each other. I mean, for the most part, there's like only one important site in the movie and there's two important sites in the book, and they really, okay, they changed a lot more now that I'm kind of thinking about it. But it was genuinely a good. They got the idea right. They got the plot points for the most part right. They just nailed the atmosphere and the vibe. And I think the fact that they stopped at one movie is fine. This is a trilogy of books, and I think the fact that they didn't go on and make a trilogy of movies doesn't hinder that first movie's effectiveness to be what it is, do what it does, and just stop right there. I think there's no need to go on. You could, and you could make the second and the third, and it would be fine. And it would, if they were done as high quality and as well as that first one was done, I think it would be a good trilogy of movies. But I don't think that's necessary. I think that movie really can function as a standalone, and I think it does everything it needs to do without going any further. That being said, this was a pretty impressive trilogy of books. I guess it's now going to be a whatever that word is. I want to say quadrilogy because that's what they called my Alien movies back in the day, but it's not that in books. It's something else. I'll put it on the screen. I'm sure I will. But anyway, I really felt like Annihilation was a genuinely good and genuinely impressive adaptation of this book. Next up is Battle Angel Alita. And this makes me sad that this movie didn't do well. I loved that movie. I thought it was fabulous. I thought it was cast well. It was acted well. I thought Robert Rodriguez did a great job directing and making this movie. I thought the visuals were stunning. The action was good. Everything about it was good. It was even a good adaptation. It follows the source material pretty closely. It takes some liberties here and there, but for the most part, nailed it. It kind of repositions a few things. It kind of pulled Motorball forward and kind of intermixed it with some parts of the story that it wasn't mixed with in the manga. I don't care. In a world where manga adaptations, like I said, get just phenomenal animes, they get the worst movies, like hands down. I don't think like there's a good anime to American made movie that even comes close to being passable, let alone genuinely a good movie. Now, I will say there were some dips in like Act 3 in this, and it was like, I don't know, there were some pacing issues. Act 3 was a little wonky in the movie, but I was still, oh my gosh, I think it was a fabulous movie, and I really am upset that it didn't do better because we really deserve movies 2 and 3. Just give James Cameron what he wants. He makes you enough money with all of his bullshit Avatar movies. Let him have his Alita movies too. Get it together, Disney. Next up is good old Steve-O King-O. And it's It. Now, this was fabulous. I don't think I know anybody that didn't really like the It movies when they came out. Like when It Chapter 1 dropped and everybody went to the theater and checked that shit out, we were dumbfounded. It was stupendous. It was just the best adaptation of a King anything that we'd seen in a long time, or at least that I had seen in a long time. I thought it was fabulous. He nailed that vibe. He nailed the feel. He nailed everything with the kids. It was great. It Chapter 2, I feel, was a little bit weaker than the first one. I don't know if I'm alone in feeling that. But all in all, I think it was genuinely quite great. I don't know why they split the kids into the first movie and the adults into the second movie. I think we could have left it intermixed like the book was. I feel the story worked better intermixed like the book was. But now I'm just splitting hairs here because I really genuinely feel like that was a great adaptation. Pennywise was legitimately scary, intimidating. Skarsgård crushed it in that role. Like, he'll be typecast as a bad guy for the rest of his life, maybe. I don't know. But just, yeah, fabulous. The casting was great, too. All of those kids did great jobs. Like, all of them. I think the kid, once again, going back to Chapter 1 versus Chapter 2, I feel like the kids did a better job than the adults did. Not that the adults did a bad job. I think I was just that genuinely impressed with the performance of the kids that, man, what a good-ass movie. I don't know. Really good adaptation, too. Next up is Dune. And I am speaking very much specifically of the new Dune movies that just came out. Not that old 1984 shit or whatever that movie was. Actually, I've never seen, that's not true. I saw it back when I was a kid, and I literally remember absolutely none of it. So I should probably rewatch that just so I have a frame of reference. And I actually remember the television show, the little miniseries, extremely fondly. I kind of wanted to do a video where I compared the adaptations of the new movies to that miniseries, but I want to reread this book and then rewatch that miniseries before I go into anything like that. But anyway, speaking of this book and the recent adaptations that we got, I think they're fabulous. I think they are really genuinely good movies. I think they're genuinely good adaptations. I think Denis Villeneuve really crushes it in anything that he does. He's been one of my favorite movie directors since Arrival. And then Blade Runner was just 2049. Like the fact that he even kind of created something new in that universe, but made it as good as it was. Just the fact that he even did that at all. Oh, mind-blowing. Anyway, I will say that there were a few decisions that were made, some changes from the source material in Dune to the movies that I kind of want to grumble about just because of my book purist, and it is one of my favorite, book series of all times. I was that guy coming out of the theater going, yeah, but that's not how the book did it. But that being said, they're just so good. It's hard to imagine anybody else doing a better job, especially in Hollywood, especially the way that the Hollywood machine is and the way they like to f things up anyway. I just can't imagine it being done better than Denis did it. So I'm going to say, yeah, just great stuff. I don't even know what number I'm on. Next up on the list, I'm going to have to bring out another Stephen King one, and that's going to be Dr. Sleep. Actually, as a matter of fact, you could pad one of these lists of greatest adaptations out with a lot of Stephen King books. It's just, he's gotten some really good ones. You could probably make the opposite of this list, like the top 10 worst book to movie adaptations. You could probably fill that list up with Stephen King adaptations too. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're here to talk about Dr. Sleep. Now, this is a movie adaptation by Mike Flanagan, and I've just been singing that guy's praises every chance I can get on this channel because he's just so phenomenally talented and good at what he does, and he makes just some of the best Stephen King adaptations, just some of the best things, period. Like, go watch Midnight Mass and tell me that's not the greatest TV show to come out in like the past decade. Anyway, then he has the job of this to make a sequel to The Shining based off of the book, which is a sequel to the book The Shining. But the movie and the book diverged in some pretty significant ways there, and he somehow takes this book and makes a proper sequel to the movie while also just feeling genuinely true to the book, which is a sequel to the book, not the movie. And there's that he threads that needle flawlessly. It's like he didn't even bat an eye. He said, oh, can I make an adaptation of a book that's a sequel to a book but still make it a sequel to the movie and do this all without missing a fucking beat? He said, of course I can. My name's Mike Flanagan. I don't make mistakes, apparently. It's mind-blowing how the juggling that he had to do with this and make it all work and just make it so as flawless as he did. Just stunning. Then, on top of that, the casting and the acting was just next level. Ewan McGregor, I pretty much like him in just about anything you're going to put him in. I just like him, period. And then Rebecca Ferguson, I don't know if she knows how to do a bad role. She's just phenomenal in pretty much everything I've ever seen her in. And then you put Mike Flanagan at the helm, and it's just, there's not a bad part to this whole formula at all. Next up is Shogun, and that is a show that just came out last year. I read the book in preparation for the show to come out because the trailers for that show looked so stupendously amazing. And actually, my comment section has been telling me to read Shogun for a while before they even announced the show. It was pretty much when I read the book Musashi that my comment section immediately said, if you liked Musashi, go get you some Shogun. Anyway, that show came out. There is a reason why the Shogun show, we just had the Emmys a couple weeks ago, and Shogun broke the record by like double. Like, I think the record was like 12 Emmys won by a show ever, and Shogun took home like 20. It was insane. It literally mopped the floor with everyone else there because that show was just the greatest thing to come out that year by far. And nothing could even come close to competing with it. It was that good. And then not only was it just a truly stupendous and fabulous show, it was a genuinely good adaptation. It took the book, it took the source material, and it actually adapted it extremely well. There are some notable changes. They give Toranaga like a lot more screen time in the show, and they kind of bring him forward. But, you know, I mean, he is kind of the star power of the entire show, so that's understandable. There are a few episodes in the middle of the season where they like, once they get to that little town, they kind of like just start doing whatever the fuck they want and like inventing plot lines and things that happen in the show that don't ever happen in the book. And there's like a couple episodes there where I was like, we're just building drama for drama's sake. And I was starting to get really nervous because it was just like, we just made a bunch of shit up for the show. Isn't that great? And I'm like, no, that's not great at all. But then about 2 or 3 episodes, the last 2 or 3 episodes of the show just locked back into the book and actually followed it pretty much beat for beat and just ended exactly how the book did. And it just crushed it. So we'll just kind of forgive that weird couple episode middle section where they just kind of invented a bunch of drama for the sake of the show. But other than that, fabulous. The best show to come out, probably hands down, and just a truly, genuinely good adaptation of this book. Next up, I'm going to go with American Psycho. Now, this is actually one that when I did mine, the movie was better than the book. A lot of people kept putting this in the comment section, and I vehemently disagree. I do not think that the book is better than, I do not think the movie is better than this book by any stretch of the imagination. I think they are 100% on par with each other, and I think the movie, I keep wanting to say that, and I think the movie was a genuinely good adaptation of the book. There's so much dialogue in that movie that was literally lifted straight from the book, like word for word. If that dialogue feels tight and punchy, and the movie, you watch that movie and you're like, man, this dialogue is so slick and smart, it's crazy. That's because it's straight from the book. Like, it's like they didn't even try to improve on it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And, you know, they didn't try to fix it. They just, now the conversations are way longer in the book. So they just kind of took bits and pieces and kind of shoved them together, threw it in the movie, and it just, it was great. It worked well. It flowed well. Everything about it was great. They deleted a few things because you normally have to cut out something here and there because books just would be too much content for a typical movie. But all in all, I think it was actually plot-wise one of the closest that you're going to get, and character-wise one of the closest. Of course, we got to go back to, I don't know who directed it. I'm sorry, Mary something. I know it's a lady. Hold on. Now I feel bad. I've been calling out so many directors. Mary Harron, and she just, between her directing of the movie and how well she handled it, and then just Christian Bale, just the nobody else could be Patrick Bateman in the way that he was Patrick Bateman. He embodied that role like it just so good. Now, next up, it is almost impossible to have a conversation about the best book-to-movie adaptations without discussing 2001: A Space Odyssey. Now, this is just a pitch-perfect book-to-movie adaptation because Arthur C. Clarke was writing the book at the same time that he was writing the script for the movie, at the same time that the movie was filming, at the same time that he was collaborating with Stanley Kubrick on the movie. Like, it was complete synergy in the creation. They were literally coming into being simultaneously, with Kubrick and Clarke really just holding hands and just going through the whole way through. And the only real stipulation on Kubrick's part was Clark wasn't allowed to release the book until after the movie came out. He wanted that movie to hit theaters and just smack the world in the face, and he did not want them to know what was coming. So he really held Clark back in the sense that he made him agree to not put the book out until later. But as far as the creation of them is concerned, they were actually created simultaneously in conversation with each other. So the fact that the book and the movie are so tightly and perfectly melded as almost one thing, it's almost like a no-brainer. But yes, it is genuinely good. Now, there are some slight differences. Like the whole end of this book is way less cryptic and you get more information. You kind of actually understand the end of this because he tells you what happened. Whereas the movie then instead opts to go into like acid trip space baby, roll the credits. You know, so if that confused you in the movie, read the book. It's a little bit more explanatory than the weird acid trip was. And now number 1 on the list, as in the greatest book to movie adaptation of all time, at least I think, probably. I mean, it's always debatable, but I'm going to say A Scanner Darkly by Philip K. Dick. And this is hands down, by far the best Philip K. Dick adaptation ever. I don't even think that one's debatable. Now, I did put Blade Runner on the list of like movies that were better than the book, but I don't actually think that Blade Runner is necessarily a good adaptation. It is a fabulous movie, but it deviates so much both in tone and messaging and meaning from the book that it's not a great adaptation. It is a great movie, but this is genuinely a great book. The movie is genuinely a great movie, and then it is such a phenomenal adaptation. It is mind-blowing how well that movie nails the mood, the tone, the atmosphere, the feel of this book, the feel of the dialogue between the main characters and the interactions and the weird paranoia and everything about it is just like, it's shocking how good of an adaptation that movie is. If you don't know what A Scanner Darkly is, A Scanner Darkly is a book. It's a story about a man who is a narcotics agent, like in this kind of near future world where he is investigating these drug den houses, but he accidentally gets himself hooked on the drug that he's supposed to be investigating. So now he's an investigator investigating these drugs, but he's also now just knee deep in that life. And he lives in basically his house has become like a drug den in and of itself. And it's him and his friends just getting high and strung out. And then he has to go to work and try and still investigate these drugs. And the 3 friends that have to be strung out drug addicts in this movie is Keanu Reeves, who plays like the main character detective guy, but he's also a drug addict, and his 2 friends, Woody Harrelson and Robert Downey Jr. And half the movie is these guys getting twisted out of their minds and then having the most ridiculous drug conversations you've ever heard in your life, while just the paranoia sinks in. Oh my gosh. Just amazing. And then the whole movie's done in this style, I forget the name of it, where they like filmed the actual movie on film and then they go back over it in post and kind of like hand draw over top of it to make it look like it's animated, but it's not animated. Oh my gosh. And with the nature of the book, with all of these people being really strung out the whole time, and then the weird like mood and tension and that atmosphere and the paranoia that is caused by the drugs, and also the fact that he's a detective and he's in the, oh my gosh, just everything is nailed so superbly well. It is probably by far the best adaptation that I have personally seen. I don't know. I would be really, really hard pressed to find a better one. Anyway, what would you consider to be the best adaptation of a book that you have ever seen? And as always, everybody, the link for my Patreon is in the description below. The link for my Discord's in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.